Well, how a company, can be part of the international stage and part of the international trade goes out of them being just a national company. It's something, I mean, in business people are working with, and I'm just willing to um, read one of the views, one of the models on this. The others are very similar, although there are some minor differences. Stage 1, this is the earliest model. Management is not interested in exporting, maybe it's not even worth mentioning. Stage 2, management is willing to fill unsolicited orders but makes no effort to explore feasibility of active exporting. I mean, if someone really wants to buy, they sell, but they don't make effort to get a market there. Management actively explores feasibility of active exporting. The firm exports experimental bases to some psychological close country. The firm is an experienced exporter. Management explores feasibility of exporting to more psychologically distant countries. So all of these stages, especially after second one, to what extent it is possible for small countries? I mean, the state openness, how does it affect the small countries, small companies? And here, actually, I mean, there's also discussion on that, but at least for a significant number of economies, a healthy economy should contain the companies called MSMEs. This last M is actually micro companies, micro, small, and medium enterprises. So that, I mean, it creates a path for being a company owner in the country. I mean, if there are only large companies existing, then the ordinary people might not never have enough money to be company owners. But if micro companies exist, which you can found with relatively less amount of money, and you can develop step by step to small and medium enterprises, and in that large enterprises, then economy is considered more healthy, at least by some economists and politicians. But how can those MSMEs stay alive, and how much they can deal with the international trade? Well, here you can see basically, I mean, how the MSMEs are distributed. Basically, in developed countries, very little exists in the manufacturing, and most of them in the service sector. Basically, in developing countries, well, again, trades, well, usually trade and service sectors is the ones where they are more dominant, although in developing countries, relatively more MSMEs are seen in the manufacturing and agriculture sectors. These are, I mean, this is true for micro enterprises, by the way. For small and medium enterprises, well, again, most of them are in service sectors, but significant portion of them in developed countries are also in manufacturing and trade sectors. And more or less developing countries are also same, although again more of them SMEs in this case are also exist in agriculture in these countries. And compared with their national sales, as you see, mostly MSMEs or SMEs even, without micro even, sell very little to the foreign countries, except, well, in developed countries you can see, developing country, Europe, you can see this trend is relatively more compromised, although still a significant portion of sale is done to the nation. In other places, well, the exports are very small percentage of the sales of the SMEs. And in developing Europe, this might be also to some extent the reason of the EU, which actually makes maybe the interactions easier for the small countries. companies. I'm sorry. And here you can see basically exports done by SMEs and large enterprises in different sectors. Basically, well, water supply and waste, agriculture, transportation, storage, construction, wholesale, retail. Those are the ones where actually the exports are relatively larger for the SMEs. Basically, for micro ones, actually, arts and entertainment is interestingly the highest, and other service activities. You have highest case when most of the exports are done by the micro enterprises. Well, in case of the public administration, social security, mining, basically, electricity, gas, steam, and manufacturing, the large companies are dominant, basically. You can look also to the imports, but I am just passing imports. And you can see SMEs are usually, I mean, these are backward participation in the global value chain, which means, I mean, a significant portion of the SMEs are actually buying, at least to some extent, some products from the foreign countries, but they are not that much successful in selling their products to the foreign countries, basically. And these are perceived difficulties they mentioned in interviews, basically. Perceived constraints, access to business finance, transportation costs, certification costs, access to trade finance, customs paperwork. Where, for example, one of the things that were told in the conferences, the conference done here in the metro, was, I mean, people produce honey in Cyprus, but they could not put it into small packages, which just not because they are not able to do that, they're able to sell their honey decreases, basically. This information communication technology, access to trade finance, lack of transparency of regulatory environment, unreliable low-band internet access, paperwork, national telecommunication, inadequate national telecommunication networks. So the infrastructure is less accessible for them, basically. And here, to some extent, you can see the same thing, to some extent at least. Finance has become, however, also very important in both cases. Textile, also finance is important. Paperwork, shipping costs, infrastructure, again, supply chain, other border agency delays and paperworks. So bureaucracy is certainly there, but lack of infrastructure, access to infrastructure is certainly also there, and finance is also there. You can see here a more broader view on factors affecting the SME participation, firm management, owners' capacity, education, ambition, foreign business, familiarity, readiness to risk, firm management, training, location, skilled labor availability, especially for the small company, governance, product management, quality standards. I mean, how can you meet the standards and how can you test even for the standards, basically. Especially some standards might seem meaningless, like, I mean, size of a fruit, for example, low cost, logistics, specialization, flexibility, innovation. How can all of these things done by SMEs? That's a challenge. And in some cases, actually, I mean, multiple SMEs can build certain standards that may meet certain may meet or produce certain of these factors together. For example, innovation. There can be certain innovation centers that are selling innovation to the SMEs, maybe, or providing logistics for SMEs. Support, access to finance, access to insurance, business development service, networking, firm relationship, technology, business association, customer relationship and environment, political stability, fair competition, regulations, tariffs, language, fair competition, economic conditions, and political stability. And in each case, large companies might have some additional edge compared with them. Small companies, for example, if there's no fair competition, or if, for example, there is no political stability, I mean, large companies can manage through politically unstable conditions also, but small companies might not be able to negotiate with political actors, and they might be worse off when they want to do international trade through their borders. So, of course, the political stability in the country where you want to sell your product is also important. But also, I mean, arranging the sale, getting the money transfer, I mean, all of those things also depend on stability of your country to some extent. So, perceived difficulties in building new suppliers from developing countries, LDCs, into their supply chain. Adequate airport airtime, transportation, basically, customs procedures, transportation costs and delays, export-import licensing, irregular supply, or inconsistent quality. I mean, basically, transportation difficulties, but also you might not be able to know the quality. I mean, so that's well. That's the answer to the question. What are the most typical difficulties you face bringing new suppliers from developing countries or least developed countries to your supply chains? I mean, that's why those SMEs in those countries, or even to some extent larger companies in those countries, are felt non-reliable, basically. But in some cases, even visa regimes for foreign tourists might be the case. Insecurity, business environment, access to suppliers to finance the suppliers you are doing, because they might not be able to produce if they are not able to access to finance in difficult situations, basically. Inadequate sanitary and quality conditions, local food suppliers, for example. So, well, basically, this is the end of this lecture. The lectures are connected to each other, as I said. So here we have studied, I mean, the international trade and its effects on the local countries, companies, and I mean how the basically the country's role in international trade and its policies are connected to the micro level, to the companies, and how you have in the intermediate point this country's participation in the value chain of the global economic system. But we did not look to the capital, even though we have looked to the capital or the companies in local level, basically, we did not look at national level. We did not look capital at international level. Its mobility, basically, and the effect of this mobility on the world economic system, and even you might say on the international trade. Of course, when we will look next time, we will look to the capital, basically, global capital, basically, and international, the multinational companies also. But when we look to the capital and global capital, basically, we also, of course, need to look to the overall trends of capital exists in the world economic system. So that will be our next subject. I hope to see you in the next lecture. And as always, I hope that you will stay healthy.